Did you send him my letter this year? You were with me. Don't you remember the bin for Santa at the post office? Oh, yeah. The boy thought for a moment. I'm going to see him this year. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, he can be pretty sneaky. And he waits until the girls and boys are asleep before making his deliveries. Yeah, but I'm really good at pretending. You'll see. The house stood atop a hill. The leaves rustled as they skirted through the snow, scratching the surface ever so gently. The fireplace sat deserted of life, except for a few piles of oak laid down like fallen soldiers on the battlefield. Above it, a chimney ran, tall but thin, shooting up to the sky, awaiting its only visitor. The house was asleep, as was most of the world, until suddenly Elijah heard the sound of a soft knock gently land on the roof above his bedroom. The sound evolved to gentle trotting, like hoofs that tried to tread ever so carefully. He crept out of bed, not making a noise except for the springs that let out their banshee-like wail. As he stood up, the springs shot back into form, making one last war cry before returning to their eternal slumber. The sound above his room was gone, but he quietly tiptoed downstairs, hoping to avoid detection from his parents, or more importantly, the man of the hour. As he approached the bottom of the stairs, the sound of the roof became more apparent. Directly across from the fireplace was a large pine tree, fitted with ornaments and gifts alike. A red tree skirt gently lay at the bottom of the tree, dusted in pines. As Elijah maneuvered his way to the presence, the needle-like pines pricked his feet, shooting pain up his spine. In his best effort to stay quiet, he quickly clasped his mouth and sprinted through the pines until he made it behind the tree. Using presence as cover, he waited and watched the chimney intently. Suddenly, he heard it again. The sound of hoofs. They began to become louder with each step. As they approached the chimney, the smell of rotten eggs became quite apparent. The fireplace burst to life, filling the entire room with a warm orange glow. The oak crackled as it burned, and the sound reminded Elijah of Christmas mornings. He was excited to open presents, but first, he needed to see the man in red. The chimney began to rustle as Elijah tensed up with anticipation. He could hear something inches away from the fire, and that's when he saw it. A hand, dangling just above the fire, but not just any hand. A red hand. The hand gripped the outside of the fireplace and began to pull itself. Elijah watched in awe as the man climbed through the chimney, only to get halfway and tumble onto the fireplace, causing the logs to roll everywhere. As he rolled, he quickly stood up, brushing off the ashes. Elijah watched him. He was much larger than expected, towering well over the tree. His jacket was tight-fitting, as were his gloves, almost as if they were one with his body. His fingers were long and pointy, with cracked, rotten fingernails that ended with points like a cat. His frame was far from round, but rather skinny and decrepit, with bones protruding at his elbows and knees, which bent backwards like a dog. The sound on the roof became apparent when Elijah looked at his large, cracked hooves. They walked with authority, stomping with each step. As Elijah traced the body to its head, he saw a face, large and red, with razor-sharp fangs and a crooked, pointy nose that leapt far from between the eyes. Its eyes were hollow sockets of infinite blackness that devoured any light that dared look within. Atop his head shone giant horns that swung with such force, Elijah didn't know if they controlled the head or the head controlled it. As the beast locked eyes with Elijah, the boy tried to scream, but the sound was eclipsed by the roaring fire that took the home in seconds, leaving the property to nothing more than a pile of ash and scorched earth. In a town far away, in a land much too cold for most folks, a man in a red suit gently opened a letter sent from a boy whose name was crudely written on the front. The letter read, "Dear Satan, I am being a good boy all year round, and I want to see you in person. I don't want just any present. I want you. If you reel, please come to 1618 Dollard Street, Toronto, Ontario. If you even reel, that is. Signed, your friend, Elijah Miller.